contaminant known as NDMA in ranitidine heartburn medications. NDMA is a chemical that the FDA and World Health Organization both classify as cancer-causing. Now, prior to this announcement, CVS and Walgreens pulled Zantac from their shelves, citing the link between Zantac, NDMA, and cancer. If you or a loved one have taken Zantac or another heartburn medication and developed cancer, how do you fight for the compensation you deserve? You choose the right legal team that has the experience, support staff, and resources to seek the most compensation for your injuries. Call for more information and a free case review.
I sent your new prescription to the pharmacy.
Any idea how much it will cost?
You have a choice. Insurance or GoodRx?
I have insurance.
Insurance is not what it used to be. People struggle to get their prescriptions covered, and prices keep rising. I recommend GoodRx. You get free coupons to save on your prescriptions. Compare prices to find the best discounts.
GoodRx. Smart.
Stop paying too much for your prescriptions. Download the free app today.
War Room with Stephen K. Bannon. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome to the War Room, Saturday, June the 6th, the year of our Lord 2020, 76 years on from the launch of Operation Overlord, better known as D-Day, on the 6th of June 1944, when Allied forces launched the combined naval, air, and land assault on Nazi-occupied France. Joined in studio by Jack Posobiec, Jack Maxey, Greg Manns, and joining us on the line now, host of this show, Stephen K. Bannon. Steve.
Well, listen, guys, I want to thank you so much for doing this special. And here's why. You know, Raheem, the other day you talked about the Churchill speech. That was the 80th anniversary. You know, that kind of kicked this thing off when he went to Commons and said the British people would never surrender to the Nazis. And, you know, a couple of years later, 4 years later, we were actually going back to France to basically free Europe. It's incredibly important, particularly, I think, in this day and time when you see the streets of our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., with people who want to erase the memory of American history and erase all the great achievements we've had. And it's more important than ever, not just to wait to the 75th anniversary and the 80th anniversary and all these things, but to really honor these every year and every opportunity we get. I think it's very, very important. And Raheem, I think this show is incredible because we've got Patrick K. O'Donnell, who's the best combat historian of his generation, to tell the story of the young boys of the Army Rangers, the 101st Airborne, that went to Pointe du Hoc. We have the airborne assault at Utah Beach. Jack Posobiec, who's a naval intelligence officer, tells this incredible story of Operation Fortitude, of the intelligence operation that split the German army and allowed us to hit the beach without the maximum force of the Germans against us. And then, Raheem, I think one of the most powerful things is your story, how, as a young British kid, you were never taught the story of D-Day, or the story of the British forces in World War II. And so it's more important than ever that we commemorate these tremendous victories in Western civilization. And I think this is going to be a fantastic show today. I want to thank ABN, Patrick K. O'Donnell, John Fredericks Radio Network, all of our partners to make this possible. These things are very difficult to pull off, and really want to thank you guys. I'll be back for the second hour to talk about the new China. But I think this hour is just going to be incredible, and I know it'll be replayed again and again and again.
Absolutely. Well, Steve, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us here to intro this show. It's an incredibly important thing. This is what links us, another link between, across the Atlantic for us. And we're very grateful to have Patrick K. O'Donnell on the show today as well to talk us through all of these things. Steve, just before we let you go on this, I wanted to just ask you your personal experiences and stories with this. I think Jack also has familial experience. Greg does too. I'm sure Jack Posobiec as well. Steve, just talk to us a little bit why this is so important to you as a man. Well, we don't have Steve for the follow up there, but we'll get back to that when we have Steve on in the next hour as well. We are here in the War Room on Capitol Hill talking about the D-Day Valor and Victory. Patrick K. O'Donnell, who's joining us on the line. Do we have Patrick?
Hi, Raheem.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
How you doing,
I'm right
sir?
here.
Hey, Patrick, we're really grateful to have you on. Talk us through a little bit from your perspective. You're one of the best historians out there. Your books are absolutely fantastic. Complete. Those sorts of books that you just cannot put down when you pick them up. Go through them real quickly, but so chock full of just the most incredible stories of valor. I wanted you to go through with us a little bit of where we're starting off with D-Day. What's the broader story? And then drill down into the specifics for us, Pointe du Hoc and more.
Sure. The broader story is this is the invasion of Europe, the main invasion of Europe, the invasion of France. And initially it's scheduled for June 5th. But weather plays a big role in the invasion. There's 156,000 Allied troops that are going to hit 5 beaches in Normandy, roughly a 50-mile coast. And this is occupied France. Heavily defended occupied France. The Germans had fortified nearly all the invasion points in France, and then also positioned their armor to quickly react to any kind of invasion. And the invasion is initially scheduled for June 5th, but weather intercedes. The weather patterns are not favorable on that day, and a young Air Force officer with the Royal Air Force basically convinces Eisenhower to postpone the entire invasion on June 5th. The weather is important because there's tidal patterns that are only available in a few certain days, 5th and 6th, and then 2 weeks later. And he convinces Eisenhower to postpone one day because there's a weather pattern that'll be favorable in the early morning hours of the 6th. And it's incredibly important because we had advance warning of the weather from stations that we had in Greenland. The Germans did not have. They literally thought that the invasion would not take place for another 2 weeks. And Rommel himself actually left the invasion area to head home to Germany. And it's really quite interesting because had they gone forward with the invasion 2 weeks later, there was a massive nor'easter-type storm that would have swamped the entire invasion and made it impossible. So the delay is important, and it's June 6th that the invasion takes place, and that starts with a airborne component where there are roughly 20,000 Allied airborne troops that land behind the invasion beaches. And the portion that I'm most familiar with is the 82nd and 101st contribution behind Utah Beach. I began interviewing World War II veterans almost 30 years ago. I volunteered as I got out of college to start interviewing World War II veterans. And that's been my kind of cause. It's been going out and interviewing these guys, and they're telling the stories. And it's really important.
Patrick, can you tell us a little bit more about that, especially for people out there? We know and we see the commemorations as they occur, and we see when the politicians get up there and when the Queen gets up there and talks about these things. But for you, when you go out and do these interviews, can you tell us a little bit more about what you learn yourself, and maybe share with the audience some of the poignant stories?
Well, this is just a remarkable generation of individuals that are now in their very late 90s. And most of the individuals that I interviewed were very close friends of mine, and most of them have passed. The beginning for me was in roughly 1992. when I started interviewing members of the 82nd Airborne Division, I specifically interviewed the Pathfinders. And these were the guys that were at the very tip of the spear of the Allied invasion. These were paratroopers that were dropped in behind the lines to bring in the main airborne body. They set up Eureka and homing devices, basically, that allowed the planes to zero in on their position. And from there, they were able to bring in planes. But the problem was that most of the Pathfinders were misdropped. Of the 16 groups that were dropped in, most of them were scattered all over the place. They weren't able to obtain their equipment and bring it in. And this caused massive scattering of the drops.
Patrick, we're delighted to be joined by Patrick O'Donnell, one of the foremost historians in this field. How many tons of equipment are we talking about here that had to be landed ahead of this invasion?
The airborne piece was about 20,000 men, and it began on the night of June 6th, around midnight. The first member of the invasion that dropped in was a member of the SAS. It's the British Special Services, Special Forces, if you will, for World War II. He drops in, and then it's followed by the American Airborne, as well as British Airborne. The British take a place called Pegasus Bridge, which is incredibly important. It's near a place called Caen in the British beaches, which prevents the bridge is important to take because they don't want the SS armor to hit the beachhead. So the bridge is taken by glider. But going back to the American component, this is these Pathfinders teams come in and they're misdropped. There's clouds and everything else, and it just breaks up the invasion.
I want to throw it open here as well and ask an open question to anyone here to discuss this. At the same time this was going on, I mean, the plans that had been in, I say plans in place. The plans were constantly changing and constantly had to be fluid for this. But there was a great reluctance on the British side, if correct me if I'm wrong, who actually Churchill was more interested and had more sympathy towards maybe looking at the Mediterranean, looking at Portugal. They didn't necessarily believe that they had the discipline because having had lost so many professional army soldiers, were also reliant in large part on conscripts. Patrick, can you just talk to us a little bit about that?
Please repeat that question again, Raheem.
Just about the British reluctance to necessarily pursue a strategy which was concentrating all forces in the north of France, rather than going an alternative route and trying to wear the Wehrmacht down in a different way.
Well, initially there was a plan to coincide the landings in southern France with the D-Day invasion in northern France, but that was just there was a shortage of landing craft. It was just not possible to do it at exactly the same time. So they spaced it out. I mean, this is a big deal. Landing craft, fighter cover, just assets. The sheer amount of this invasion is this is the largest invasion in history, world history. They just don't have enough assets to cover both areas. So they decide to land at Normandy. And there's a massive deception operation that's involved with this. Everything from a fake army that's led by Patton, which includes blow-up tanks, to an operation that they take every German agent that's inside of the UK and turn them. And they turn them to provide somewhat accurate but false information that will lead the Germans to believe that the actual invasion is at a place called Calais. And the Germans concentrate a lot of their forces at Calais.
Jack Maxey, the quote, well, there it is. It won't work, but you must bloody well make it. Field Marshal Sir Alan Brooke, Chief of the Imperial General Staff, speaking to General Sir Frederick E. Morgan in 1943, when the plans were being put in place for something like this. The British had incurred just so much damage, right? Just so much loss. And of course, still really reeling from a defeat, a retreat at Dunkirk. So you could talk to us a little bit about the backdrop.
Well, I think that the British were starting to get their legs back. Certainly once the Americans had entered the war, particularly the air war. Earlier, there were thousands and thousands of American troops stationed in England. I think that while you mentioned this reluctance of the British to go forward, I think it's a side story to the real history. I think that the British people were ready to go. I think there was no chance to get even more ready. I think the real, many times in history, I'm going to sidetrack here a little bit, the U.S. always seems to have some metaphysical thing come in and change things. The weather, for example, on the invasion of D-Day. The fact that Erwin Rommel was injured a few days before and was sent back to Germany, so that there was a little bit of disorganization in terms of how they were going to command the armored forces around the landing beaches. It seems so many times, and Patrick, you've talked about this before, how there's almost a divine intervention that seems to creep into our plans and help us.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, gentlemen, Patrick, we'll come back from the break with this in just a moment, because we have a break coming up here. I agree with you, Jack. By the way, the public, I believe, maintained that fighting spirit throughout. What I mean is there was somewhat of a reluctance on the strategy from British military leadership. We'll get into more of that, though, as well, as we continue this show. D-Day special, Valor and Glory. Jack Posobiec, Greg Manns, Jack Maxey, Patrick K. O'Donnell, Raheem Kassam. We're grateful for Stephen K. Bannon joining us in the first hour here. We'll be back with him in the second hour as well. Make sure you stay tuned. This is The War Room, and we'll be right back.
Pain, swelling, stiffness. When your hands hurt, you can't function. Until now. Introducing the new Copperfit compression gloves with Sure Grip technology to give you more power, more control, and more agility than ever. Our most advanced copper-infused compression fabric woven into an ultra-lightweight performance glove that fits like a second skin to support relief and recovery of sore muscles and painful joint stiffness. And new Sure Grip bands built in to provide a strong, non-slip grip for more power and control.
You need total control of your hands when you're doing anything with construction. Your hands are your livelihood. The Copperfit gloves are great. The grip is outstanding here with these different ribs. It makes my hand a lot more usable. It just feels like you're just ready to start the job.
The gloves have been a game changer for me. They help with flexibility and pain and soreness. They allow me to do my job even better.
Breathable wicking fabric with an open finger design for full range of motion, feel, and control.
They relieve my pain. When I grab something, I'm not in pain. The support or whatever magic these things do, I don't know what it is. It doesn't matter to me what it is. It works.
I get a lot of pain, and it can make it difficult to do the smallest thing. While I'm wearing this, I do not have any pain. I can use it on the keyboard. I can use my phone. I drive with it. I sleep with it. I love this glove.
The new Copperfit compression gloves with Sure Grip technology. Relief from painful muscle and joint soreness. Guaranteed or your money back. Call 1-800-984-5571 or on the web at getcopperfitgloves.com for only $19.99. Order right now and your shipping is free.
I tried it. I use it. I know it works.
Copperfit gloves definitely just make my life better.
I've used Copperfit before. This has helped my hands so much. These things work.
Feel better with copper-infused compression. Ask for it by name. Copperfit compression gloves.
War Room with Stephen K. Bannon. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back Welcome back to the War Room. Raheem Kassam sitting in here for Stephen K. Bannon on assignment. Jack Posobiec, Jack Maxey, Greg Manns, and joining us down the line, historian Patrick K. O'Donnell, one of my favorite. If you can have favorite historians like the nerd I am, Patrick K. O'Donnell is one of my favorite historians out there. We want to thank our broadcast partners for helping us put together this special D-Day special, America's Voice.news, Newsmax, John F. Frederick's Radio Network, all of our local partners, radio partners across the country, and of course blown through the CCP firewall into China thanks to G News and GTV, subtitled in Mandarin. For the people that don't get to hear these stories in China, the Lao Beijing and every piece of the War Room team and show, whether it's the pandemic, whether it's the political stuff, the campaign 2020 stuff, the guys at G News and GTV do an excellent job here. And of course, thanks to our sponsors. NetSuite by Oracle is the world's #1 cloud business system. And of course, 2020 has not been kind to a lot of American businesses so far. So if you're going to succeed, you need every possible advantage. You can get your guide right now at netsuite.com/Bannon. netsuite.com/Bannon. Right, gentlemen, I want to throw it back to Patrick K. O'Donnell here. Jack, you had an incredibly important point, Maxie, about the divine intervention as it is often taken place in favor of the Allies, in favor of the United States. I had to butt in on Patrick O'Donnell before throwing it to him there. We were up against the break. But Patrick, bring us back on that point.
Sure. I'm going to take you to that point with the most dangerous mission at D-Day, and I wrote about it in a book called Dog Company. And this is about the Rangers at Pointe du Hoc. And Pointe du Hoc was a rocky sphere that kind of juts out between Omaha and Utah Beach. And the reason why it's important is that there were 5 heavy guns that were on Pointe du Hoc on the top of it that could hit either beachhead on either side or the naval forces out in the channel. And it had to be taken at all costs. They plastered Pointe du Hoc for a month with heavy bombers, fighter bombers, and shells even from battleships, and nothing could take out these heavy guns. So they sent in the Rangers. This is the most dangerous mission at D-Day because it's a frontal assault on a 90-foot cliff. And there were 2 elements to the attack on Pointe du Hoc, 2 Ranger forces. And I'll get to this in a second, how divine intervention can change the course of history, or a series of events can change the course of history, even a small one. And the Ranger force, which consists of about 3 companies of Rangers, 225 men, are the initial force that have to scale Pointe du Hoc. And the landing craft for that unit is late because of a series of navigation errors on the part of a young lieutenant in the Royal Navy, and his navigation system isn't working that day. He literally starts to take the entire Ranger force to another point in the invasion, and they become 45 minutes late because of it. But this changes the course of history because if they had landed on time, the airborne assault, the bombers that were plastering Pointe du Hoc were also late. The bombs would have landed on the landing craft. But secondly, it also diverts the secondary force that the Rangers are with, and I'll get to that in 1 minute. As the Rangers get off the landing craft at Pointe du Hoc, they're hit by MG-42 machine gun fire, which has a rate of fire of about 1,200 rounds per minute for a machine gun. Some of the barrels were literally burning out because they were firing so many rounds at the Rangers. They were throwing grenades down at them. There were IEDs that were suspended from the side of the cliff, and these guys had to climb up ropes under this direct fire. As they got to the top, they sent out the code word for the rest of the Rangers that were waiting for them to come aboard, but that radio signal never got there for some reason. And what it did is it has a profound impact on history and one of the great inflection points. That force of over 800 men from the 5th Ranger Battalion, along with 2 other companies of Rangers, are diverted to Omaha Beach. At this time at Omaha Beach, it was a charnel house. Literally, men, you kind of remember Saving Private Ryan, that opening scene where The doors of the landing craft are opening, and men are just getting machine gunned to death. There's 88, there's rounds from German 75s and 88s that are hitting the landing craft and blowing up. I mean, some of the guys with flamethrowers literally are hit, their tanks are hit and they explode. I mean, the invasion at Omaha Beach is at a critical point. And they're literally talking about bringing everybody off the beachhead back to the ships, which would have had a profound impact on the entire invasion. But at this crucial point, call it divine intervention or a strange course of events, the Rangers that were supposed to go at Pointe du Hoc are then diverted to Omaha Beach. And they're supposed to land at a place called Dog Green. But the officer on board, the Ranger officer on board, Max Schneider, negotiates with the Royal Navy to land on Dog White a little bit over to the left, and it changes the course of the invasion. It's not as the beach is not as heavily defended. They bring off the entire 5th Ranger Battalion, which lands intact, and they spearhead the invasion off Omaha Beach. The famous phrase, Rangers lead the way, comes from this beachhead, where the Rangers are given that direct order, and they literally do lead the way, and the main breakthrough off of Omaha Beach, which changes the course of history. This is the invasion that changes the course of history and breaks Germany's back.
Extraordinary. Jack?
Well, I mean,
Jack.
Go ahead, Jack.
Well, I was just going to throw out that, even to this day, whenever a Ranger renders a salute, that is the phrase that they send off. Rangers lead the way. So even when I be in joint commands or joint task forces, and you're seeing Rangers, I served under a Ranger in a joint unit at Guantanamo Bay, who famously recounts all of those stories to us and the history of his unit, and that phrase and that story, that moment is so important to the morale of the Rangers. It's part of their ethos, it's part of their day-to-day life, it's part of their spirit de corps, and it is immortal. It is absolutely immortal.
Maxie?
Well, I mean, listen, these guys are part of American lore. They're part of our American history. There's something that we can all be proud of. And I think that one thing that really needs to be pointed out on a day like this, while we're watching the whole country enraged and street brawls out there, to remember that the young men who landed that day look very much like the young men who are out there robbing targets today. And to me, it's shameful. And I think that we, the good Americans, the ones of us who want to see this country succeed, should look back and find strength from these great individuals, because it should give all of us a kind of tonic for the difficult times that we're in right now.
I think it's such an important point. This is something that I think Americans take for granted a little bit in their education, and in the great historians and the public figures that you guys have, is you actually tell the human stories of this. And we didn't really have that growing up in England. It was kind of, you would learn the general themes of what happened and why it happened, but really hearing the stories from Patrick O'Donnell and from hearing, Rangers lead the way, and just these little things that create history, but are still massively part of who we are. I'm afraid in a lot of the Western world have been lost. In any of your guys' opinion, let's start with Patrick. Is it recoverable in outside of America, in the Western world, to bring the stories of great Europeans and great Brits who contributed in the way that you've done so successfully with Americans, Patrick?
I think that there's great stories around the world from various cultures. Now, the story with Pointe du Hoc that I think that's important, that the viewers really should take away from here, is this: Pointe du Hoc was important because these guns had to be neutralized. They threw everything at it. Battleship shells that were 14-inch. They spent a month bombarding it with B-17s, B-26s, B-25s. Nothing could take these guns out, but a single individual was able to do it. And he was able to do it by sheer willpower. As he was climbing that rope, Leonard Lamel was shot through the side by an MG-42 machine gun bullet. And he kept going. kept going. He kept climbing up that rope. And as they got to the top, Pointe du Hoc resembled a miniature fortress. There were bunkers everywhere. There were anti-aircraft guns that were firing at them. There were machine guns, and it was a maze of twisted tunnels and bunkers. And then the top of the casement had been overturned by the heavy bombing. So it resembled kind of the crater of a moon, where the Germans were embedded inside of these various tunnels and bunkers. And he literally had to fight through this with a machine gun bullet on his side that he was hit by. And the guns themselves were not where they were supposed to be. They were supposed to be in the encasements on top of the cliff, but they were over 100 or 1,000 yards away. And I think this is what makes the American troops different from the men that they were fighting, who the Germans were superbly trained. I mean, these were some of the best troops that we've got that were in World War II, magnificently trained, but they weren't able to improvise. I've heard this multiple times they weren't able to improvise on the fly. And here's a we're going to jump to a break. Hold that thought. We're going to come back with you right after this break. We'll finish that off, and then to Jack Posobiec, Operation Fortitude. This is War Room, the special, the D-Day special, Valor and Glory. Jack Posobiec, Jack Maxey, Greg Manns, Raheem Kassam, Patrick O'Donnell will be back after this break.
Brett Favre, legendary quarterback. Jerry Rice, legendary wide receiver.
You ready for your weekly meeting?
Yeah, we're ready.
Let's do this. Let's stack the deck.
When legends play, they wear Copperfit Advanced Back Pro. Copperfit's best-selling compression back support just got better with new double-band adjustable supports for customizable compression when you need it most.
Since I put this on, I feel so much better. The core is the most important thing. To know that I'm stabilized here. Whatever I'm doing, I can give it 100%.
4 built-in stabilizing supports designed to improve posture and help reduce lower back stress and strain.
You have back pain and it's affecting your everyday life. You do something.
If you can find something to help you get back out and be active like Copperfit, go for it.
Absolutely.
Do not give up. A high-performance compression fabric infused with the powerful properties of copper, 360-degree flexible mobility, and lightweight, durable construction.
Nothing more painful than having back pains. If you're aching, if you feel like you can't work out anymore, you can. And that's with Copperfit.
Yeah. It's for all of us who still want to be active, still want to compete.
Way to go. That's what I'm talking about. Man, this really does feel good. It feels to me like the fountain of youth.
Copperfit's best-selling back support just got bigger, badder, and better. Or call 1-800-944-5851. Or on the web at advancedbackpro.com. Get yours now for only $19.99.
This does feel good.
That's what I've been saying.
You think it was fair?
It was fun.
Play for the love of the game.
Copperfit, live limitless.
Have you or a loved one taken Zantac or another heartburn medication and developed cancer? You may be entitled to compensation. The FDA just announced that it is requesting manufacturers withdraw from the market all prescription and over-the-counter ranitidine heartburn medications, commonly known by the brand name Zantac. This is the latest step in an ongoing investigation of a contaminant known as NDMA in ranitidine heartburn medications. NDMA is a chemical that the FDA and World Health Organization both classify as cancer-causing. Now, prior to this announcement, CVS and Walgreens pulled Zantac from their shelves, citing the link between Zantac, NDMA, and cancer. If you or a loved one have taken Zantac or another heartburn medication and developed cancer, how do you fight for the compensation you deserve? You choose the right legal team that has the experience, support staff, and resources to seek the most compensation for your injuries. Call for more information and a free case review.
War Room with Stephen K. Bannon. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Stephen K. Bannon is out on assignment today. We're filling in for him here in the War Room. It is Saturday, June the 6th, year of our Lord, 2020. 76 years on from the beginning of Operation Overlord. Jack Maxey, you were regaling us in the break with some statistics that I think are so important for people to understand why we're doing this and why it's so important that we tell these stories again and again and again.
You know why it's important? Because these are American stories. These are the stories of your culture. These historical stories are things that should give you strength and pride and give you courage, because if one man can do it, you can do it too. That's the whole idea. And also, we have to remember, last year there were 500,000 World War II veterans still alive out of 16 million in uniform. Today there are only 300,000. They estimate of the men who fought at Normandy, less than 1,000 of them are alive today. And for me, it's very poignant because these were my uncles and my grandfathers and all the men who I had as role models as a young man. So, you know, history is really what this, it's a continual story of one human life after another. And even myself, I'm feeling a little dotage because it doesn't seem so long ago that I was pitching horseshoes and being taught lessons of life by all those great old men who today would be pushing 100 years old.
Patrick, if we still have you, I just wanted to that you finish the point where we came back, we had the break, if there was anything to clean up there, but also then if you would move us on, and we throw it to Jack Posobiec as well on this one, to Operation Fortitude. Patrick.
Len Lamel, who was shot in the side from machine gun bullets as he scaled Pointe du Hoc, then made it to the top and had to work his way through a maze of machine guns and anti-aircraft guns. And this is the point that I was trying to make. Americans are able to improvise. Instead of halting the mission, he saw that there were tire tracks and surmised that might have been where the guns had gone, and literally followed those tracks and had to fight through several German machine gun nests and positions, and was able to plant explosive devices, which were thermite grenades, on the gears of those guns and disable them. It's really quite a remarkable story.
Amazing. Posobiec.
Yeah, so Patrick already spoke to this a little bit, but Operation Fortitude was really a year-long planning and intelligence information operation, a deception operation. Denial and deception, D2 is what we refer to now as the military. And every intel officer is offered this training as you go through and working your way up as an intel officer in the intelligence community now. And I went through this training with DIA, and we delved deep into this planning. So to paint the picture for this, and as everybody knows, the Atlantic Wall is set up. The Nazis, the German High Command, have fortified the entire beachhead there across France, across every country along the way. However, they don't know where the invasion's going to come. And of course, where Normandy is, and we know the backstory now, so the cat's out of the bag 76 years later. But beforehand, they didn't know. And Normandy is not the closest point across the English Channel from France. It's actually Dover to Calais. That's of course where the train is today. And so, at that point, you've got the two generals, right? The two generals at the front. You've got Erwin Rommel and you've got George S. Patton. And Rommel and Patton had already squared off in North Africa, right? The Desert Fox. Well, Rommel's up there again, and Patton's on English, and they're on the English Channel side, and they're staring, they're staring across the channel at each other. And Rommel thinks, well, Patton's the lead, so this is going to come wherever Patton is, because Patton's their greatest general. But Eisenhower understood that dynamic, and so what Eisenhower does is he sends Patton to Dover Castle, and Rommel then thinks, if Patton's at Dover, they're coming from Dover to Calais. And he maintains that entire structure and sends that back to German High Command because of his status with his credibility with High Command. They take his assessment to be the lead, and the whole thing's a trick. And of course, the British, because of Bletchley Park, they know what the German High Command is saying, because they've through the Ultra program, they've cracked the Enigma machine, but they've done it in such a way that the Germans never discover the fact that they've cracked this machine. So you've got, this is, we call it spy versus spy now. So we're looking at you, but you don't know that we're looking at you. So we're sending disinformation, we're sending cables, we're sending fake documents that are found. We're sending so much fake plans. Oh, we're coming to Norway, we're coming to Portugal, we're coming to South France, we're coming up through Sicily. Actually, prior to the invasion of Sicily, there was at one point, it wasn't part of this, but a separate deception operation that's infamous, or in the intelligence community, where Operation Mincemeat, and this was primarily a British operation, where they actually found a cadaver, dressed him up as a military, sort of a courier, and then dropped him in the sea off the coast, the southern coast of Spain, where it was picked up with fake invasion plans of South Spain, when actually the invasion was coming to Sicily. This was from about a year before, 1943. There's a great movie about it that actually has one of the actual officers playing in it. And, so there's these deception operations were constantly going on with the Allied forces, and they were just, to use the phrase, they were running game on the German High Command throughout all of this. And so when they send Patton to Dover Castle, they create an entire fake army group. They call it the First Army Group, and he's given a budget. So, you have to make it look like there's an entire army there. How do you do that? Well, he's renting hotel rooms. He's buying food on a regular basis, because they know they have the spies there. So they're buying food there, and then they'll go out into town. And when they go out into town, they're all wearing, it's Patton and his officers wearing logos that are false. They're fake logos, because they're expecting to be seen, and then word to get around that, okay, all right, so it was this unit, and it was this division of that unit, and so everything that they could do for weeks leading up to the invasion to make it look as though there was actually a fictitious army, and it was completely phantom, to include fake landing craft, fake tanks in some cases. And it was so effective, and this is key, and this is what Patrick mentioned earlier, it was so effective that all the way up until August, September, October, the Germans still thought that Normandy was a diversion, and that there was a greater force still planning to come at Calais.
Isn't that incredible? It reminds me of Churchill's great comment about truth and lies in wartime. He says, in wartime, truth is so precious, she should always be attended to by a bodyguard of lies.
And this is Sun Tzu. This is the implementation of Sun Tzu, all war is deception, in that, which really was, and the British actually called it Operation Bodyguard, right? And it was the bodyguard of the invasion of Normandy.
And you had the simulation of radio chatter between these
of course,
units and everything.
Fake signals information, fake all this disinformation that they're just spreading on a regular basis. Yeah. Fake calls back and forth.
Full army units, except without the army.
Right, exactly.
Effectively.
And people doing voices across the channel, and then they're reading it from Ultra.
Patrick, jump in here.
And then there was something else called Operation Double Cross, where they took all of the agents that were in England and doubled them. They put them under the barrel of a gun and said, okay, you have a choice. You can either die or work for us. And every one of these agents then worked for the British intelligence, MI6, and they were then doubled. And they sent back misinformation in their reports. Some of it was accurate. They wanted the Germans to believe that what these guys were giving them was credible. And then they had to make sure that everything that the agent received was something that they could actually obtain from their location and their contacts.
Extraordinary. Jack, you mentioned the living history of this, the way that you still learn it and study it. Just open question to the team. What other parts of the things that were either learned or put into practice during D-Day still stick with the way we do things today?
Well, the entire idea of the U.S. spreading or Allied forces really using these denial and deception operations, using disinformation ahead of major invasions. This was done throughout the Gulf War. This was done throughout the Second Iraq War, Second Gulf War, however you like to refer to it. These types of information, and actually particularly for the first Gulf War, the amount of feints, the amount of false information, giving fake press releases to CNN and others that were out there to make people think that invasions. In one case, there was I forget the actual name of the battle, but there was a time where the military had claimed that they had taken over, liberated a certain city in Iraq, when the attack hadn't even begun yet. And so when Iraqi forces heard this, they started scrambling, and Saddam was trying to figure out, what the heck is going on? Did we lose this city or not? Because keep in mind, we had already knocked out all of their communications at this point. So their entire C2 command and control infrastructure has been shut down. So Saddam's generals aren't able to talk to Saddam. He's not talking to people in the field. And then the U.S. military is going to CNN and other outlets and just spreading pretty much saying whatever they want. And there's actually a funny Saturday Night Live bit that was kind of about this that we show today in OPSEC classes, where it's I think it's Phil Hartman and Kevin Nealon and Chris Farley and all of them playing journalists, and they say, just keep in mind, everyone, for this briefing, we cannot give you any tactical or operational information. Because David Spade, yes, can you tell us where exactly the invasion will take place, and how many forces there are, and which units will be taking part in this operation, and can we get their names, and maybe some of the names of the soldiers participating, and it's actually quite funny, and we still show that to this day to new recruits and people coming up and all of that builds on the lessons learned from Normandy. All of that builds on that successful legacy of diversionary tactics, denial and deception, and understanding the importance of it. What it is, it's called OPSEC, right? Yeah. Operational security, and the fact that it was used to such a high degree in 1944, June 6th, the shores of Western Europe, that it's still put into practice every single day.
Patrick, you've been so generous with your time. Just let the audience know, would you, for their benefit, where they can read more from you and your books. What is the latest?
I've written 12 books on American history from the Revolutionary War, beginning with a book called Washington's Immortals, and 7 books on World War II, such as Dog Company or Operatives, Spies, and Saboteurs, Branch Assignment, Into the Rising Sun, and many others. You can get them anywhere on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or any bookstore. Kind of going back to your question, Raheem, what is the legacy of D-Day? What is the legacy of World War II? And much of that legacy is the formation of our modern special operations forces and modern intelligence gathering capability. Much of that is in something called the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS. The OSS sent in, after D-Day, JEDVERT teams. These are 3-man special operations teams.
Patrick, can you stick over the break and just finish that point? I know you're pressed for time, but it would be great if you just stuck over the course of the break. I feel really bad. We're always having to cut you off. There's a problem when you do things remotely. If you were here in studio, you could give me a punch on the leg. This is the War Room D-Day special, Valor and Glory. Raheem Kassam, Jack Sobick, Jack Maxey, Greg Mans, Patrick K. O'Donnell. We'll be right back.
Tired of struggling with regular mirrors that don't adjust so you can't get close enough? Need both hands but you don't have a stand? Can't move in the right direction to see your own reflection? You need Flexible Mirror, the bendable, light-up magnification mirror that comes to you. Watch. Just stick it on and turn the base. The super suction locking mechanism means you can put it on any smooth surfaced place, horizontal or vertical. Lock it onto any mirror, table, or desk. Use it in the shower, even on a window. The secret is Flexible Mirror's super strong articulating arm that's attached with an ingenious ball and socket so it can swivel and rotate for the perfect angle. And look how strong it holds. The mirror is precision crafted with 10 times magnification and crystal clear optics. And with a soft glow LED ring, you'll get picture perfect lighting to highlight every detail. Flexible Mirror makes shaving, applying makeup, hairstyling, grooming, and accessorizing easier than ever before. Plus, men, listen up. The 10 times magnification makes it perfect for giving your beard a detailed trim. Whatever you need to do, Flexible Mirror comes to you. Plus, the contemporary chrome accents add a lovely modern touch to any room. Stop struggling to put in your delicate contacts and let Flexible Mirror come to you, so it's much easier to do. Similar mirrors can cost as much as $100, and they don't even come to you. But you can get Flexible Mirror for the special TV discount price of just $19.99. We guarantee you'll love the Flexible Mirror so much that it comes with our 90-day no questions asked money-back guarantee. And here's the best part. We give you free shipping on your entire order. That's right, free shipping. Here's how to order.
To order, call 1-800-987-6183. That's 1-800-987-6183 or order online at tryflexiblemirror.com.
This is the kind of card that has America talking. With it, people with Medicare are getting all-in-one coverage for their doctor visits, hospital care, prescription drugs, and more. This kind of insurance, called Medicare Part C, may also cover dental care, eyeglasses, hearing aids, fitness programs, vitamins, even healthy meals and rides to the doctor. With this kind of coverage, you do not need a Medicare supplement insurance plan. You will access your benefits through your Medicare Part C plan for one low and oftentimes $0 monthly plan premium. You deserve to get the most from your Medicare benefits. Call now for free information that may help you get more coverage for less money. There is no obligation to enroll, whether for yourself or someone you love. Call the number on the screen now. Call now.
War Room with Stephen K. Bannon. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
You're back in the War Room on Saturday, the 6th. That was abrupt. On Saturday, the 6th of June, the year of our Lord 2020. We're grateful for our broadcasting partners on this, and also grateful. I mean, without our partners and our sponsor, we couldn't bring you these incredibly well-produced specials with all these fantastic guests. And I want to thank NetSuite by Oracle. It's the world's #1 cloud business system. NetSuite gives you the visibility and control over your financials, HR, inventory, e-commerce, all in one place. And you've got the agility with NetSuite to compete with anyone, work from anywhere, run your whole company right from your phone. 20,000 companies now running NetSuite to make it work for them. And NetSuite actually surveyed hundreds of business leaders and assembled a playbook of the top strategies that they are already using as America reopens for business. So you can receive your free guide, 7 actions businesses need to take now, and schedule your free product tour at netsuite.com/Bannon. That's netsuite.com/Bannon. Right, gentlemen, we only have a few minutes left here, so I'll throw the floor open. Patrick K. O'Donnell, you had some just final thoughts for us there, and we had to cut you off, but I want to throw it open to you first.
Sure, I think it's the modern Special Operations Forces, the modern Airborne. This is the legacy of World War II. It's where agencies like the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services, which formulates the U.S. Army Green Berets, the precursor to it, something called the operational groups and Jedburgh teams. It's also intelligence gathering, which is vital to the invasion, where there are chairborne scholars back in the United States, including diverse members of that community, which was rare at that time, which were cracking German codes or analyzing German supply lines. I think that the legacy is a rich one. It's I wrote a book called Beyond Valor, which covers this story. It's about the Airborne. And one of the really interesting stories that nobody had ever told was something about the triple nickel paratroopers. And this was the first African-American unit to be part of the 82nd Airborne Division. These guys were in World War II, and really quite an extraordinary story. Doctors, lawyers after the war, and they become 2 years after the war, the first integrated unit in the United States military. Just an incredible story.
Wow. Well, there's a reason that I think Military Review has called you one of the world's preeminent military historians, and the Washington Times called you one of the best historians of his generation.
Hey, Patrick, I just wanted to say you mentioned those OSS teams. Happy to say that my grandmother up in heaven was one of those people.
Well, the OSS, Office of Strategic Services, was about 14,000 men and women. These are men and women spies from all stripes and all walks of American society and culture. These were really extraordinary individuals. I mean, we're talking about Julia Child as one of them, for instance, to members of the 82nd Airborne that become Jedburghs or part of the operational groups. A very diverse and unique set of individuals that changed the course of history.
Absolutely amazing. That's Patrick A. O'Donnell, author of The Unknowns, Washington Immortals, Dog Company, Give Me Tomorrow, We Were One, First Seals, The Brenner Assignment, so many great things. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us here on this War Room special today.
Thank you. It was an honor to be with you.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, over to you guys. Jack, I know we want more Jack Maxey.
Well, I'm not going to be angry today.
No anger today.
I'm just simply full of pride and humility thinking about our wonderful history. I do think it is important because I think it's something that we should hear. This is the message that was given to the young men by their supreme leader, General Eisenhower, on the morning of the invasion. 6 June 1944, Supreme Headquarters, Allied Expeditionary Force. Soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force, you are about to embark upon the great crusade towards which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you in company with our brave allies and brothers in arms on other fronts. You will bring about the destruction of the German war machine, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe, and security for ourselves in a free world. Your task will not be an easy one. Your enemy is well-trained, well-equipped, and battle-hardened. He will fight savagely. But this is the year. Much has happened since the Nazi triumphs of 1940-41. The United Nations have inflicted upon the Germans great defeats in open battle, man to man. Our air offensive has seriously reduced their strength in the air and their capacity to wage war on the ground. Our home fronts have given us an overwhelming superiority in weapons and munitions and war, and placed at our disposal great reserves of trained fighting men. The tide has turned. The free men of the world are marching together to victory. I have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty, and skill in battle. We will accept nothing less than full victory. Good luck, and let us all beseech the blessing of Almighty God upon this great and noble undertaking. General Dwight Eisenhower.
Absolutely amazing. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. We're talking about 156,000 on the day, and backed up by 330,000 in the coming weeks. After the first day, Winston Churchill calling it thoroughly satisfactory. I would say
3,958 heavy bombers, 1,234 medium and light bombers, 4,709 fighters. We've never seen a battle like this ever assembled in the history of mankind, and let's pray we never see one again. Let's pray that these guys did what was necessary and ended this for the future.
And one thing I want to throw out there, Raheem, and kind of answer your question from earlier about how do we preserve these stories. And it's one thing to hear the statistics and the numbers and the sheer size, but when you make the stories smaller, you also make them more intimate and more personal. And for my money, that's the HBO series, before HBO took their hard left turn, the Band of Brothers, what they did there in terms of, and that's Easy Company, they were the airborne assault that Patrick spoke about at Utah Beach prior to the amphibious assault, that it's a documentary and a docudrama. They get the actual people together.
It's amazing.
We watch it every year.
It's amazing. It's fantastic. Well, thank you all for joining us here with this special. We'll be back with another special on China in just a moment. The new project launched by Stephen K. Bannon, Miles Guo, and the team. You're not going to want to miss it. What's taking place over there? Beginning of the end for the CCP, we'll let you decide in just a moment. This is War Room Special. We'll be right back. The world's #1 cloud business system. So head on over to netsuite.com/Bannon. Very grateful to have our team, full team here in studio right now, and our host, regular host Stephen K. Bannon down the line from New York. Greg Mans, Jack Maxey, Jack Posobiec. I'm Raheem Kassam. Steve, where do you want to start us off on this special?
Well, first off, I want to say that I was formerly the lead host, but Jason and I are turning the batons over to the War Room team. So I'm here. I'm at sea, and being a former naval officer, I couldn't be happier. So we will definitely rejoin you guys at some time if they can get me off this. If they can get me off this vessel. I really want to thank you guys. The D-Day special, I had the opportunity to listen in, and it was incredibly powerful. You guys did an amazing job, and thanks to Jack Posobiec and Patrick K. O'Donnell and everything. I think it's so important in this time, particularly in this day and age, to keep the commemoration of these major events in living memory, alive. One of the things I want to mention, I've gotten back to me the flag. I'm an advisor, the senior advisor to this new government that stood up, the new federal state of China. And it's on Drudge today. This is very serious all throughout the world. And we try to really low-key it and low-play it in media in the United States to really focus on the Chinese people, because these are all expatriate Chinese. And I'm really glad Jack Posobiec, who's a former naval intelligence officer and speaks perfect Mandarin and knows China better than anybody, is one of our co-hosts today. But this is cultural and sports figures, people from media, besides expatriate, billionaires. Obviously, Miles Guo has been one of the leaders of this effort. It started really with the whistleblower movement. And the whistleblower movement in China is quite simply, it's people that are inside the apparatus in China that are fed up with it, that understand what the CCP is doing can't be continued. Now, one of the things, guys, that they're most stunned about is how the CCP, and President Trump mentioned it today in the Rose Garden, I mentioned it yesterday in the Rose Garden, when he talked about it. He said 106,000 Americans are dead right now, and he specifically blamed, this is the second time in a week, he specifically blamed the Chinese Communist Party for doing this. And I can tell you from what the Chinese are telling me, these expatriate Chinese that want their country back and want this gangster regime gone, is they're stunned that there's 105,000 Americans that are killed in under 10 weeks, and that the American people are not really directing the outrage at the Chinese Communist Party. They're really kind of confused about why all these protests are going on and why these riots are going on, understanding we've got issues. We've always had issues with race, those issues, and people have, freedom to assemble, and people have freedom to protest. In fact, that's one of the key elements that the new federal state of China is depending on the American Constitution. They want freedom of assembly and the ability to protest also. But they see Antifa, and it was very specific. It was very interesting. They told me that a lot of what they see in this kind of Antifa movement and a little bit of the Black Lives Matter is what they call neo-Maoism. It's to basically to get you to reject your society, to reject your culture, to reject your civilization. It's very much like the Cultural Revolution, the aspects of the Cultural Revolution. And people they can't understand why the American people are not in righteous indignation, not standing up and making their politicians stand up and go after the Chinese Communist Party right now. One of the reasons that this new, really kind of government in exile, I guess you would call it, and you can get to it on Drudge, and the big aspect there is the Michael Jordan of China, the Michael Jordan of Chinese soccer, or what they call Chinese football, the greatest player ever to play for the national team, and his wife, who's the badminton champion, badminton being a huge sport in China. She's one of the greatest, if not the greatest, female badminton player ever. They're a power couple. They actually defected about a year ago and live in Barcelona, or outside in on the coast of Spain. They were really the people that read the proclamation to start the entire broadcast we did the other day. But the Chinese keep asking me, and Jack and Raheem, I want to throw it back to you guys for a second, is that they say, we don't understand why the American people are not in righteous indignation about the Chinese Communist Party that clearly did this. And President Trump said it again today. And they're sitting there going stunned. They said, you've had, 100, 104, 105, 110,000 with more to come, and potentially over 1 million, as President Trump said today. People basically murdered by the Chinese Communist Party and all this economic destruction. And they say that you're really turned on yourselves and you're not focused on who the real enemy is. So it's one of the questions we get. I want to get into the new federal state in depth with you guys of how it's been put together. And talk about how we opened the other day. And I know Zach, who is one of the leaders of this, of the young people in back of this, in the whistleblower movement. He's been the ones that produced our great specials over the last couple of weeks. He's going to be on for a couple segments. But I want to toss it back to you guys in the studio. It's really stunning that given all the carnage the Chinese Communist Party, and I got to tell you, every person associated globally, and this broadcast the other night was in, I think, 88 countries had host groups, and I think we picked up something like 20 countries from France to England that had participants. Every person in the new federal state of China that's associated with this new entity absolutely believes Antifa is taking money from the Chinese Communist Party. There's just no doubt. They say you can tell that these are bad guys, and it may not be solely funded by the Chinese Communist Party, but they definitely got their hand in it, and these people point to the social media and how they're stirring the pot and trying to drive this. So they're just saying the Chinese Communist Party is an enemy number one to the people of China. That's why they felt the necessity to actually announce a new government that will replace it, because it's lost its legitimacy. But as importantly, they say this is an enemy of the American people.
That is an extraordinary development in this wider story. If we get the evidence out there, and there's no doubt that there are certain pointers that we look at, Steve and the team, when you look at how the bots interact, the Chinese, the Wu Mao army interacts online at the moment, how they've done it through the coronavirus. Now what we're seeing in terms of the protests all across the United States as well. And of course, the interesting thing about this, I'll throw it over to the team here as well, is that when this first started, remember, the media and a lot of politicians sort of pushed back against this CCP narrative that they saw coming out of rooms like this that we're in, and saying, hey, hold on a minute, guys. We're not supposed to go to war with each other. We're supposed to look at where this has come from and who can be held responsible, and whether it's the WHO, and whether it's the Chinese Communist Party, and where this came from itself, the story about the wet market and all this stuff. You'll notice now, where we are today, that the situation has changed. There's not not very many people who are willing to put their neck out and say, oh, those guys are conspiracy theorists, right? You look at what Sir Richard Dearlove, the former head of MI6, had to say about this just this past week when he's talking about the coronavirus, quote, starting as an accident. He's talking about a Chinese laboratory. He mentioned gain of function, all of this kind of thing. I want to throw to Posobiec and Maxi here.
Well, Steve, I wanted to ping on something that you just said there, talking about Antifa and the Chinese Cultural Revolution of the 1960s and 70s. I actually wrote in my book, 4D Warfare, 2 years ago, the parallels, and certainly spiritual parallels, between what we're seeing in Antifa on the streets across North America and Western Europe and Eastern Europe in some cases, and the Red Guards of China back during that time. Now, this was a time where Chairman Mao felt that he was threatened. He felt that his position within the party was vulnerable, that the party was moving against him. Keep in mind, this is on the back of the Great Leap Forward, the hundreds of millions who died in that, the peasants, the families. And so the Red Guards are then inflamed with their little red books full of Chairman Mao quotes and their Mao badges to enforce the mind control. And what do I mean by mind control? I mean that you had, literally, it was called Mao Zedong thought, and that you had to adhere to Mao Zedong thought. This was the purpose of the book, so you could understand it. And when you held the book, that was sort of like your currency, that you could prove that you adhered to Mao Zedong thought, which is, of course, known as the revolution. So if you did not adhere, then you were put on what? You were put into a struggle session, a self-incrimination struggle session, which meant that you had to stand up and be publicly shamed. In the case of China, you had a sign hung around your neck with your crime and then your name written out. In some cases, these were held in large stadiums, soccer stadiums, and you had to repudiate yourself. You had to incriminate yourself. You had to judge yourself. And then, and only then, if they accepted it, if the mob accepted it, they might allow you to walk out with your life, right? And we see echoes of that. We see sort of almost a spiritual echo of that in today's cancel culture that we see going on.
I think it's much deeper than an echo. I think it's direct. I mean, remember, one of the reasons you've had the declaration of this new federal state, and you've had so many cultural people that have left China have been very successful. I keep reiterating, where the Chinese have English common law and freedom, they thrive, whether it's Australia, North America, Spain, the United Kingdom, Canada, pick a country, any country. One of the reasons, Jack, is that they've left because the materialism, the atheistic materialism of Xi and the Communist Party today, Xi thought, has stripped any possibility of having any spiritual development. Anything just by this crass materialism, and even that materialism is like being a slave inside a system. They say, and Miles was the first one to point it out, he says, hey, he sees these sessions these guys are running. He says, this is the Cultural Revolution. This is exactly what they did. You got to shame yourself. You have to basically drop any relationship to your society, your history, your civilization. This is not an echo. This is the Antifa is cultural Marxism. Raheem, you brought up the great point the other day. This came out of what they called the anti-Nazi thing back in the 30s, but this was all driven by the Soviets. This is cultural Marxism. And there's a direct link. There's a direct link in methodology to the Cultural Revolution. It's the Chinese that I work with that want to go in front of the Statue of Liberty. Why? They say that's an international monument to freedom. And that's what, so if we have this kickoff, we want to be in front of the Statue of Liberty. We want in our declaration, the declaration that Miles Guo, bid himself and signed in blood that he would commit, and all of them committed to a death struggle with the Chinese Communist Party. Inside of here is every one of the great traditions of the Judeo-Christian West, the freedoms, the freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. So, Jack, I don't think it's an echo anymore. I think that this Antifa movement now, even more than the Occupy movement, which is where I first got involved with them through Andrew Breitbart and Brandon Darby, to really understand Antifa was the deep professional revolutionaries under Occupy. This time, I think it's come much up that this, to me, is on technique and methodology, a direct link to the Cultural Revolution in China in 1968, which they used to break. What did they want to break? They wanted to break the Chinese family, the tradition of the Chinese family and Confucianism. So, Jack, I think what your book was prophetic. And, boy, I hope that section we put back online or get it out there, because you know this better than anybody.
Steve, this is Jack. One other close parallel that you can see with the Cultural Revolution was this attempt to destroy history. Many of the cultural icons of China were destroyed by these angry mobs. And we're seeing that today in the United States with this attempt to erase history, if you will, by this same group. And I think to a certain extent, underneath this, as part of this, by destroying history, they get to recreate it however they want. And it's very similar to what happened in China.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. We've got to, I believe, jump to a quick break in a moment, but I want to also mention, this everything we're seeing at the moment, whether it's Muriel Bowser painting Black Lives Matter on the streets, pulling out the way the National Guard, all of this stuff. I mean, did any of you, and I want to come to this in the next segment as well, did any of you believe that 2020 would bring this level of division, and that it would be the politicians, the same ones who have worked with Joe Biden, like Max Baucus and all of these guys, who would be siding with Antifa and in effect siding with the Chinese Communist Party through all of this stuff as well? I want to get into that, what it means, and also details from Stephen K. Bannon, the new federal state of China. This is a War Room special. We'll be right back after this short break.
Everyone loves the benefits of compression socks, but they're just so hard to get on. Until now. Introducing the all-new Copperfit Energy Socks, redesigned for the first ever easy on, easy off fit to help reduce swelling, relieve tired, achy muscles, and provide energizing support. A new blend of stretch fabric for the most comfortable, easy on, easy off compression fit.
Being a SWAT commander, we train to win. The Copperfit Energy Socks, they didn't feel like other compression socks. They totally exceeded my expectations.
Our most powerful copper-infused fabric, woven into our easy-on, easy-off compression sock to help reduce swelling discomfort from prolonged sitting or standing.
I'm 38 and a half weeks pregnant. Copperfit Energy Socks worked beautifully.
Extra support around the arch and ankles for increased support and relief of muscle aches and pains.
I'm so excited about these socks. I'm so much more energized to go do things after a day of work. They just slip right on, yet they still have that same compression that you want.
A soft cushion footbed for all-day comfort.
I'm on my feet at least 9 to 10 hours a day. These were fantastic. A lot of compression socks are a little too thin, especially for what I do. With Copperfit, I could wear these every day.
Feel more energized. Feel more active. Just feel better.
They just hug your leg. It relieves all the pressure that you have. I have so much energy, I can go, hey, you want to dance?
The first ever easy on, easy off compression sock. The most comfortable compression sock you will ever wear. Get your Copperfit Energy Socks now online at GetEnergySocks.com for only $19.99 or call 1-800-978-1224. Order right now and we'll include a second pair of compression socks free.
I've never felt anything like it before.
No more pain, no more swelling, no more achy, tired feet.
I can never go back to regular compression socks again.
Don't settle for ordinary. Ask for the original by name, Copperfit Energy Socks.
This is the kind of card that has America talking. With it, people with Medicare are getting all-in-one coverage for their doctor visits, hospital care, prescription drugs, and more. This kind of insurance, called Medicare Part C, may also cover dental care, eyeglasses, hearing aids, fitness programs, vitamins, even healthy meals and rides to the doctor. With this kind of coverage, you do not need a Medicare supplement insurance plan. You will access your benefits through your Medicare Part C plan for one low and oftentimes $0 monthly plan premium. You deserve to get the most from your Medicare benefits. Call now for free information that may help you get more coverage for less money. There is no obligation to enroll. Whether for yourself or someone you love, call the number on the screen now. Call now.
War Room with Stephen K. Bannon. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
You're back in the War Room. The new federal state of China, Saturday, June the 6th, the year of our Lord 2020. Greg Mans, Jack Maxey, Jack Posobiec, Raheem Kassam, and joining us down the line, Stephen K. Bannon. You know, they've turned the plaza in front of the White House into put a new sign up there right outside the St. John's Church, Black Lives Matter Plaza. This is the same street that about a year ago, maybe a little bit more, they changed to Khashoggi Place back there. This is where a lot of the nation's activism concentrates itself at times of crisis and often times of institutionalized nihilism, as we were talking about in the break as well. But the question is, could we see this coming? And for a lot of Americans, frankly, a lot of Brits, a lot of French, a lot of Australians, all these places across Europe where these protests have spread to in recent weeks, where the coronavirus has had a major impact. The CCP has had a major impact, holding governments ransom, whether it's personal protective equipment, financial, tools, and things about our technology. Huawei, especially in the United Kingdom, springs to mind. The 5G technologies there. Did we see this coming? Because I think a lot of people would thought no. And you see that meme often out there, right? 2020, what a crazy year. But I want to throw the question out there as to whether or not this was foreseeable. Because we mentioned on the show yesterday morning, on the Friday morning show, I said, hey, every bit of quote-unquote conservative hyperbole that we've heard for the last 20 years actually has turned out to be understatement. Steve Bannon.
No, I think, look, this is what managed decline looks like. And this is why, we put so much emphasis on China and what's happening in China with the Chinese Communist Party. This is what managed decline looks like. And this is why you saw the rise of populism, you saw the rise of nationalism, you've seen the rise of, this is a fourth turning. This is like the Revolution, this is like the Civil War, this is like the Great Depression of World War II. This is the great fourth turning in American history. And if you think you feel uncertain and discombobulated and you don't really know what to make of it, well, there was the same things in these other turnings. And, Trump said it. Nothing's inevitable. It's human action and human agency. We're either going to have the country that was bequeathed to us, except better, or we're going to go in a radically new direction. And it is not foreordained what direction that will be. That's one of the reasons we do this work at the War Room. It's one of the reasons I've never really been that impressed or part of Conservative Inc., because I just don't think those guys really understood the depth of this. And now you're seeing it. This is what managed decline looks like. And, the Antifa guys are very serious. And you look at how it's being really instigated and promulgated by mainstream media and the politicians and the political class, all the way from England. And you see the political class supporting Huawei and letting Huawei basically be the 5G and the quantum computing backbone of British society, all the way to here to guys like Max Balkus. You have many, many running dogs. Michael Pack yesterday or Thursday was just approved after 3 years to be the head of the broadcast, the global broadcasting group, really the Voice of America reports to. And we've talked about all the fellow travelers inside of there that have really assisted the CCP. So no, this is real. And what's amazing is our values people are still attracted to. All the Chinese, the 50, 60, 70 million expatriate Chinese throughout the world are all galvanized to try to do something that essentially in values, in political values and structure, it kind of looks like the United States or countries in the West. They want freedom of speech. They want freedom of assembly. They want freedom of religion. They want political parties. They want vote. They say one man, one vote. So they are attracted to what they see in the West. They do understand that we've had a tremendous spiritual decline, and they look right at this and they say, hey, you're in the middle of a cultural revolution by these hardcore leftists, and they call them neo-Maoist. They're very blunt. And Miles Guo and these heroes, and that's what they are, as heroes. And particularly when you see them attracting the quality, like the couple in Spain, Mr. Hual and his wife, the quality of people they're attracting to their movement is stunning. And what are they attracted to? They're attracted to what the West has had for several thousand years: freedom and liberty, and they're fighting for it. And they're fighting for it, and we're giving it up. So I think that's why this is such an amazing time in history.
Steve, it reminds me of you saying the other day that your grandmother was a convert to Catholicism and therefore was the most ardent supporter. I think America's a little bit like that. You look at the church in Rome, it's weak, but you look at the church in Lagos, Nigeria, and it is strong. And you look at the people around the world, looking at our symbols, looking at the things that we are known for, and wanting them, absorbing them, accepting them in their own hearts. And here we are in denial about it. And I think really part of that is that we don't know our history.
You asked Raheem Kassam of the Church of England. Who's got more faith and more spiritual power? The Archbishop of Canterbury or those great African bishops and cardinals down in Africa, leading the Episcopal Church in Africa? Who's stronger right now? The Catholic Church in the United States with spiritual values, or the Catholic Church, underground Catholic Church in China under Cardinal Zen, who I think with the Dalai Lama are the two most spiritual people in the world? You're absolutely correct where it's persecution. It's amazing where we're sitting back and kind of accepting the loss of freedom and liberty in our country, that the Chinese expatriates are fighting. They are the converts to kind of the values of the West, and they're fully Chinese. They don't want to change Chinese society. They want to get back to that kind of Confucian, family-oriented. But they do want the kind of political values of the West that we fought for thousands of years. That's what the whole new federal state of China is to really get democracy and freedom of assembly, freedom of speech. They're prepared to go fight for it. What are we doing in the United States but sitting back very passively and I think let it be taken from us?
I think that's absolutely right, and even I would extend that to within the United Kingdom. You look at the black churches in the south of London with far higher attendance rates, far higher amounts of godliness. They include that in every day of their lives, in every part of their communities, and the Church of England has abandoned any high ground philosophically, any high ground spiritually, any high ground in terms of what they produce for the nation. And it beggars belief, as far as I'm concerned, that these guys, and you saw it over the last week with the Episcopal Church here as well in Washington, D.C., the bishops slamming President Trump, it beggars belief that they will go up and morally lecture the President of the United States for daring to stand outside a church and raise a Bible up when they haven't been teaching the words of the Lord Jesus Christ for decades now. It's a complete abandonment of any principle, as far as I'm concerned. I wasn't raised in Christianity. I went to a Christian school growing up. I wasn't raised in Christianity, but I understood, and I knew the teachings, and I understood what it meant and how important it was. And I watch these guys, and it bothers me. I cannot understand how they get away with doing this. And there's obviously this great clip from Yes Minister, one of the most fantastic British television shows. He says, actually, the Church of England is basically a social club now. It's to be a bishop in the Church of England, you don't have to actually believe in God, but they can't call themselves atheists because then they don't get their stipends. So they call themselves modernists instead. And that's Jack. I want to get to you on this. You are a devout Catholic.
Yep.
You are. I mean, before this pandemic was around, you were regular in your attendance in church. You were so very ingratiated within the community in your church and everything like that. Why don't you play on Steve's point a little bit there, because it's so important to me that people hear this.
Right. Well, it's very clear, and actually, funny you mentioned that, because I actually just got the email yesterday that it looks like this weekend will be when the first time that we're able to go back to receive Holy Communion at my local parish. And for Catholics, there is sort of an indulgence that's given during times of crisis, during times of emergency, allowing for spiritual communion. But the importance of Holy Communion, the physical and spiritual oneness of that sacrament, being in the presence of Jesus' literal body and blood, is so important. And for Catholics, I know across the country, for Catholics across the world who have been denied that, and any of the Christian faiths who participate in communion, this has been a huge blow to the psyche. It's a huge blow to what we call the body of Christ. And to be able to finally have that back, it's so important to all of us.
That's right. Jack, Greg?
Well, no, I was thinking about these churches and watching them decline. I mean, the Episcopal Church, I think, has lost a third of their membership in the last 20 years, maybe a little bit more.
Is that by design?
Well, I think what has happened with many of these institutions, you see it in academia, you see it in our religious organizations, they have gotten a leadership that rejects the values of their alumni, rejects the value of their values of their followers. So it is the leadership that is turning the followers away from the churches, I believe, by essential social engineering that has lost their focus to preach the gospel.
When we come back from the next break, Steve, we're up against the break here, but when we come back from the next break, I want to ask the question as well, and a lot of our viewers asking the question is more information about the federal state of China, so we want to get more into that as well. But the question I want to ask the gentleman here and Stephen K. Bannon is: has any nation managed to survive an assault like this, both from the outside in and from the inside out, at an institutional level, through the culture, through where it's Hollywood, whether it's academia, and all of those put together? Plus you have the outside attacks from the Chinese Communist Party, every single institution and entity across the world that targets the Western civilization, the United States as the world's superpower. I want to get into all of that in the next segment. Jack Posobiec, Greg Manns, Jack Maxey, Raheem Kassam, and Stephen K. Bannon. We'll be right back with more of the War Room Special, the new federal state of China. Just a moment.
Tired of struggling with regular mirrors that don't adjust so you can't get close enough? Need both hands but you don't have a stand? Can't move in the right direction to see your own reflection? You need Flexible Mirror, the bendable, light-up magnification mirror that comes to you. Watch. Just stick it on and turn the base. The super suction locking mechanism means you can put it on any smooth surfaced place, horizontal or vertical. Lock it onto any mirror, table, or desk. Use it in the shower, even on a window. The secret is Flexible Mirror's super strong articulating arm that's attached with an ingenious ball and socket so it can swivel and rotate for the perfect angle. And look how strong it holds. The mirror is precision crafted with 10 times magnification and crystal clear optics. And with a soft glow LED ring, you'll get picture-perfect lighting to highlight every detail. Flexible Mirror makes shaving, applying makeup, hairstyling, grooming, and accessorizing easier than ever before. Plus, men, listen up. The 10 times magnification makes it perfect for giving your beard a detailed trim. Whatever you need to do, Flexible Mirror comes to you. Plus, the contemporary chrome accents add a lovely modern touch to any room. Stop struggling to put in your delicate contacts and let Flexible Mirror come to you, so it's much easier to do. Similar mirrors can cost as much as $100, and they don't even come to you. But you can get Flexible Mirror for the special TV discount price of just $19.99. We guarantee you'll love the Flexible Mirror so much that it comes with our 90-day, no questions asked money-back guarantee. And here's the best part. We give you free shipping on your entire order. That's right, free shipping. Here's how to order.
To order, call 1-800-987-6183. That's 1-800-987-6183, or order online at tryflexiblemirror.com.
Jim and Joanne are here to pick up the same prescription. They both know the system is not on their side. They both know drug costs are out of control. But one of them is taking back control with GoodRx.
Next.
So while he's paying that much, even with his insurance, she's paying this much just by using GoodRx. Use GoodRx to compare prices at pharmacies in your area and stop paying too much for your prescriptions. Download the free app today and take back control.
Hi, Linda. Looks like you've got a prescription to fill. Any idea how much that's going to cost in there? The exact same drug that's $10 at this pharmacy is $150 at this one. GoodRx finds prices and discount coupons on every prescription. Just input the drug name and instantly find savings at virtually every pharmacy in America.
Next. What can I do for you? Here's my prescription, and I have a coupon from GoodRx. Nice price.
Stop paying too much for your prescriptions with GoodRx.
War Room with Stephen K. Bannon. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room, the new federal state of China, Saturday, June 6th, the year of our Lord 2020. I want to thank all our broadcast partners. Producer Dan in studio here with us, Stephen K. Bannon down the line as well. Steve, I'll throw it over to you real quick before we bring on our next guest.
Well, you saw where it, we talked about the decline of spiritual values in the West, but in China, this is what people are fighting for. They're fighting for the basic freedoms we have here, and that's why I think it's such an inspirational moment. Posobiec said the other day on our show, talked about the June 4th movement at Tiananmen Square. Tiananmen Square, the massacre at Tiananmen Square, in which the West blinked 30 years ago, is one of the reasons we have this problem. Is never been commemorated in China. The families in Beijing have never been able to go back in those tens of thousands of dead and put a flower down. And really today in the United States, the democracy movement has kind of just petered out, and you don't really have much. That's why the new federal state of China picked a Wednesday night, which was 6 o'clock. We were in front of the Statue of Liberty. It was when dawn broke over Tiananmen Square. It was specifically timed. All those planes you've heard about, all the helicopters, miles and out there in the boat, and a global TV audience brought in. I think they had 250 million people one time on live streaming. The couple in Spain came on exactly at the moment that there had been activity in Tiananmen Square. So it's very symbolic, and those symbols are very important to these people that went through the Cultural Revolution, and even the younger people that didn't, but heard from their family how they tried to strip away all memories of history. In Tiananmen Square, Jack, you were absolutely right. You nailed it the other day. They said in Hong Kong, these kids were not going to back down, that they were going to get into that park, and they were to commemorate Tiananmen Square in the face of that tyranny. So I think we're seeing something. We're going to get up online about the new federal state. We're going to be talking about, obviously, in the days and weeks ahead. But it's caused a shock in Beijing, and here's why. The first time they know it's not just a bunch of rich guys outside of China that have made money. Now they've picked up young people. They've picked up cultural icons. They've picked up a large, there's probably 25 or 30 million members minimum already. And their objective is to free their countrymen in mainland China and to restore Chinese civilization and Chinese culture and Chinese heritage. And the way they want to do that is the Western freedoms that we take for granted. So it's going to be a very powerful movement. It's going to have a direct implication in the life of every individual watching this in the United States, because this is the great struggle of our time, both the internal struggle of the West to see what values we really believe and how we're going to go forward, and also from the last great communist dictatorship of the 20th century it should have been dealt with in 1989. We had an opportunity to deal with it. We did not. The West blinked, and now we have an opportunity to deal with it now. I don't think President Trump's going to blink, and I will tell you, these expatriate Chinese patriots will not blink either. They're gonna go the full course, and they're dedicated. Half of this Declaration of Independence of theirs is dedicated to the crimes of the Chinese Communist Party.
Steve, and one thing that a lot of people, I think, don't look at in context when they talk about the history of Tiananmen Square is that what the people of China did in 1989, it was throughout 1989. It wasn't just June 4th. It was actually for months that they were in that square after the death of Hu Yaobang, sort of a pro-reform leader in the party, was that those symbols that came out of there, the symbol of the goddess of freedom, the symbol of Tank Man, that picture that went around the world, this was something that became a symbol for groups in Poland, for groups in Hungary, for groups that were under the Soviet yoke in East Germany, the people who were there, the Solidarity Movement of Poland, waiting and fighting for years and years against the Soviets. This gave them hope because they said, if the people of China can do it, then we can do it too. And so actually this presaged, and it was the spark that lit the downfall of the Soviet Union. And so even though it didn't actually take out the CCP, this is actually something that had a massive, massive effect on the tail end of the Soviet Union. And we have to remember that it was the people of China that actually lit that spark.
Let me leave with one story about that from the other day, is because all of the new federal state of China wanted to basically somehow do something in front of the Statue of Liberty to really honor those values of liberty that she speaks for so powerfully. And Jack, to your point, Miles told me that when the Goddess of Liberty, which was built by the Chinese people, young Chinese students, to honor the Statue of Liberty, when that went up in Tiananmen Square, Miles tells me at the time when he saw that go up, he said, the CCP, now they're going to get violent. They'll never allow that to stand for so long, because they understand that's the type of rallying point that can unite all the Chinese people, because it's such a powerful symbol. He said everybody, even when he was a young boy, everybody has seen that symbol. And you're absolutely correct. When the Goddess of Liberty went up, Miles was telling me, hey, he knew that's when the CCP was going to say, no, and they can't tolerate this anymore, because that's the type of symbol that could have united all the Chinese people. That's the type of symbol we have in the United States. And for everybody out there, just to understand how powerful that is, you had a global TV audience, and the one thing that the Federation wanted to do in initiating a government in exile to take down the CCP, they wanted to do it in front of the Statue of Liberty, given the power of that symbol.
What's so incredible about the Statue of Liberty, Steve, is that it was actually created to celebrate the liberation of the American slaves after the Civil War, and was kind of hijacked by New York progressives and turned into a symbol of immigration later. But wouldn't it be great? That statue was funded by common individuals. Maybe we should create a GoFundMe page for the future Statue of Liberty that could go in Shanghai Harbor or maybe in Hong Kong Harbor in years forward.
Let's I tell you what, let's take down the CCP. Let's help the Chinese free themselves and take down the CCP, and then we'll do a go. Maybe like the people of France helped this get built. Maybe the people of America helped that get built. It's a great idea. Thank you, guys. I can't wait till Zach comes on, a young Turk, to walk you guys through some more details of the new federal state of China.
Well, thank you, Stephen K. Bannon, for joining us to discuss the new federal state of China and a whole lot more. So much important stuff to get through today as well. I want to bring on Zach now. Zach is one of the whistleblowers and one of the important activists behind the new federal state of China and this whole movement. By the way, Jack Maxey, if you were wondering, when they designed the Statue of Liberty, obviously they have a model for it. You could be that model for the one that we put in Hong Kong. How about that?
The axe Maxey, right?
Exactly.
Instead of a flame, I'll be carrying a broad axe.
Just killing some time, making sure we have Zach on the line. Zach, do you have us?
Yep, I'm here.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us, Zach. Zach, talk to us now about the new federal state of China, if you can, as much, the audience has been asking about it since they saw the first images come out of the planes flying over New York Harbor, of the Statue of Liberty, and the flag that you see at the beginning of this show and in the breaks. Zach, how did this all come together? And tell us just as much as you can. I understand that you obviously have to retain some level of anonymity for your security and those of others involved in this, but just give us the details as much as you can.
Yeah, so the Chinese people are fed up with their government. The CCP has committed countless atrocities over the last 80 years or 70 years or so. They will not stop until their enemies are dead. And so we kind of have to have the same fervor when dealing with them. And so the Chinese people themselves have really gotten together and decided that they need to change their government. I think that there's a lot of help. After this weekend, after seeing those planes go by behind the Statue of Liberty, there was a storm that passed right over us, and I think that's it. So, there's a lot of assistance we're getting, spiritual assistance, physical assistance, you name it. It's out there, and people can find it.
Now, I know you obviously can't talk about the next steps in great detail, but for you, I mean, this is obviously a situation that many Westerners are becoming more acutely aware of. The speed with which so many patriots out there across the Western world are becoming au fait with the Chinese Communist Party, their egregious behavior, not just as far as the Western world is concerned, but also to the citizens of China. I'm stunned every day today with the level of expertise that people are picking up and just how focused they are on this. If you could communicate with our audience what they should be looking for as things draw on, and how they can actually help with this. I know a lot of people want to help.
Yeah, I think right now awareness is going to be a big thing. I think there's going to be a lot of change. There's a lot of, I don't know if it's necessarily financial malfeasance or just differences of opinion on how we want our system to be in the West going forward. But there will be a day of reckoning for a lot of this. And I think it's coming soon. I think, I've watched some of the large Chinese conglomerates pretty closely, like HNA Group, if you watch that. You kind of get a hint of how troubled things are for some of their larger SOEs and other business ventures. So, I think we'll see full bore trouble ahead for the CCP. I think they're starved right now for dollars. I think that people here, Kyle Bass, Mr. Bannon, Miles Blow, they've done a number on the CCP's holdings so far. So we'll see how that continues.
Yeah, Zach, I've actually released a video about a week ago now talking about how they've went from this wolf warrior diplomacy externally towards a new Yihetuan movement internally. Yihetuan is primarily known in the West as the Boxer Rebellion. And what the Boxer Rebellion was the forces of, it was anti-Western, it was anti-foreign, and it was extremely anti-Christian. In fact, many Christians were murdered and missionaries were murdered throughout China. This is the tail end of the Qing dynasty. Why was that so important? It's because Xi Jinping and the Politburo understand the precarious position that they're in right now. That's why they're lashing out towards Hong Kong. That's why they're lashing out towards Taiwan. This is not a sign of strength. This is a sign of their own weakness. They understand that with everything that came of coronavirus, their completely failed N95 mask diplomacy that destroyed their goodwill throughout the world. It destroyed their soft power campaign. Sure, they've got their debt trap diplomacy that's still out there, and many countries are still caught in that trap, but they know that they're trapped now. The soft power is gone, and so what Xi Jinping is doing is he's, to borrow a phrase, he's gone full mask off communist. And he knows that unless he's able to maintain internal power and the CCP's regime is able to maintain their internal legitimacy and power over the country, that is why he's trying to rally the people around the flag, try to be the one, be the man who said, I reunited Hong Kong with the mainland, forget that 50 years that we were supposed to be waiting for. We're going to do it in 23, as Donald Trump likes to say, ahead of schedule.
Just final 30 seconds.
Zach, this is Jack Maxey. Real quick question. We're watching this move really quickly, but what would you say has changed that would allow something like a top soccer player from China to come and join this movie? What is making these people, these cultural icons, want to be part of it?
Well, I'll tell you what, Zach, before you answer that, let's do a quick break here because we need to come back, and I want to give you a prolonged run at that question because it's so important that we get the full details on this as well. I mean, it's an incredible story, to the point where which it's up on the Drudge Report, one of the big stories up there on the Drudge Report. This huge Chinese soccer star attracted to this new federal state of China movement. Perhaps we'll get more from Zach in just a moment. Greg Mans, Jack Posobiec, Jack Maxey, Raheem Kassam, Steve K. Bannon. Back with Zach in just a moment.
The hottest new razor is taking the men's grooming world by storm. And if you don't have it, you need it. MicroTouch Solo, the hyper-advanced full-body razor that trims, shapes, edges, and even shaves with micro-precision. And it's totally safe to the touch. Go solo for full-body control with one tool. No nicks, bumps, or ingrown hairs. Edge beards and goatees with one touch. Clean your neck, barber shop perfect. And check this out. Snap on the guide to tame growth and perfectly shape your full beard. And keep new growth stubble trimmed exactly to your style. And look, the Solo Full Body Groomer trims precisely the length of hair you want. Snap off the guide and remove unwanted hair anywhere in seconds. What makes Solo different than your ordinary razor? Dual-sided German stainless steel blade. Shave up or down at 200 microstrokes per second. The Ultra Flex pivoting head contours perfectly to you for precise results. 3 custom grooming guides for control of exact length and shape. And a built-in LED light so you never miss a spot. Solo is so precise, you need no creams, no soaps, and no water. Ditch the old man clippers and toss the scissors. You've got to go Solo. Call 1-800-709-9777 or go online at MicroTouchSolo.com and get yours now for only $19.99. Complete with German stainless steel blade, pivoting head, built-in spotlight, and 3 custom grooming guides. Everything you see here for just $19.99. The all-new MicroTouch Solo Full Body Groomer. The one tool that does it all.
Have you or a loved one taken Zantac or another heartburn medication and developed cancer? You may be entitled to compensation. The FDA just announced that it is requesting manufacturers withdraw from the market all prescription and over-the-counter ranitidine heartburn medications, commonly known by the brand name Zantac. This is the latest step in an ongoing investigation of a contaminant known as NDMA in ranitidine heartburn medications. NDMA is a chemical that the FDA and World Health Organization both classify as cancer-causing. Now, prior to this announcement, CVS and Walgreens pulled Zantac from their shelves, citing the link between Zantac, NDMA, and cancer. If you or a loved one have taken Zantac or another heartburn medication and developed cancer, how do you fight for the compensation you deserve? You choose the right legal team that has the experience, support staff, and resources to seek the most compensation for your injuries. Call for more information and a free case review.
War Room with Stephen K. Bannon. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room. As you'll know, Stephen K. Bannon is on assignment. I'm sitting here, Raheem Kassam, in his place that I'm sure he will swiftly evict me from when he's back early next week. In the meantime, Jack Maxey, Jack Posobiec, Greg Manns, and we have our whistleblower still with us on the line, Zach. Before that, I just want to thank our sponsor, NetSuite by Oracle. 2020, of course, been a gut punch to American business, and if you're going to succeed, then NetSuite is going to be one of the best advantages you can take. It's the #1 cloud business system in the world, and smart companies all over the world use NetSuite because it gives you visibility and control over your financials, your HR, your inventory, your e-commerce, all in one place. So whether you're doing $1 million or hundreds of thousands in sales, NetSuite lets you manage every penny with precision. You'll have the agility to compete with anybody, work from anywhere, and run your whole company right from your phone. Join over 20,000 companies who trust NetSuite to make it happen. NetSuite actually surveyed hundreds of business leaders and assembled a playbook of the top strategies those business leaders are using as America reopens for business. So receive your free guide. It's called 7 Actions Businesses Need to Take Now. And you can also schedule a free product tour at netsuite.com/Bannon. So get your free guide, schedule your free product tour at netsuite.com/Bannon. Before the break, Jack Maxey asked the stunningly important question, especially because this soccer superstar from China, Hao Haidong, stunned the Chinese Communist Party in recent days by coming out against CCP totalitarianism. Zach, can we put that question back to you? Can you explain that for us, who this is, how big a deal this is, and most importantly, people will want to know, well, why now, and how is this possible without him being seriously under threat?
Yeah, I mean, so I think first that the tide has really gone out for the CCP. The earthquake already happened. Now the water's gone out, and I think the next thing is the earthquake. So I look forward to seeing other celebrities and other influential people come out and say that what the CCP is doing is wrong. for years and decades, the United States and other countries around the world have benefited from the slave labor that their party forces on their people. And I think that more and more celebrities will start to come out, and we'll start to see a trickle and then a tidal wave of support for this movement, because it's on the right side of history here. And there's a lot of people that I speak to on a daily basis in this movement that are extremely well spoken and can put all this stuff down on paper and can speak about it. And it's truly been an honor to produce the show with you guys and with them as well.
And Zach, it's so critical. It's so critical what you're doing, and also what you said in terms of the financial aspects of the financial health of these firms that are tied to the CCP, because it has been America, it has been the West that has financially supported the rise of this regime in China, that has financially supported their expansion, their military expansion, their ability to conduct trap diplomacy around the world. And now those discussions that are being had as the stock market is rallying here in the United States, great, very positive jobs number report, but people are also having those discussions as to whether or not they want to continue that financial support, those financial and economic relationships with China. That's something that's obviously going to be a very key debate point here in the 2020 election in the United States. And there's really two paths. President Trump is offering one. Joe Biden is tacitly offering another.
You're watching, for the audience out there, you're watching warfare in real time, really. So, the things that you might hear us discussing on the show right now, we may have not even known about 24, 48 hours ago. Some things are obviously long in planning, and some things you just get updated with, right before. This is real-time stuff that's going on, and serious stuff. So I want to ask Zach on that point, just before we end the show. Zach, what else does the public need to know about this right now? What else can you tell us? Because I will be frank, some of the information that's even come across my desk has only come across in the last couple of hours as to what you guys are bravely doing. So just tell us anything more before we wrap that we need to know.
Yeah, I think the one important thing to realize is that this is kind of a wartime situation, and it never stopped. And so, for people that grew up in the 80s, the 90s, and 2000s, especially for younger people, they've got to really understand this stuff. They've got to get their heads around this quick, because there's a lot of traps that are laid out in the world that people can fall into. And it's got to stop. It's got to come to an end. So I think when those things start to get cleaned up, I think it will become more and more apparent. Mr. Bannon likes to say, jobs rolled out, fentanyl rolled in. And so there are real deaths from that, and there are real consequences from that. So I think, especially for the people watching this, share this with younger people, especially. Share the information that you get from this, and hope that they understand what's going on in the world out there.
Absolutely. And Zach, God bless you and Godspeed. You're doing the Lord's work. I mean, really brave and important stuff. So I know all of the audience and everyone here wishes you Godspeed with your endeavors, and of course, you come back as often as you want, and anything, any time, we'll make it happen here on the War Room. I just want to throw it back to you guys as we wrap here. I mean, we are on a weekend where you're seeing more protests all across the country, real big protests in the capital in Washington D.C. Mayor Bowser obviously covering herself in glory as always, trying to get rid of the National Guard from Washington D.C., spray painting Black Lives Matter on 16th Street. These are uncertain times for a lot of people, and Jack, you're always so good at giving us hope. Why don't you leave us with something to hold on to this weekend?
Hey, you know what you can hold on to this weekend? We have celebrated Normandy, the landing in Normandy. Think about that. These people went through hell for you. We can go through this. We need to just tamp down on these young kids who are acting crazy, and I believe in carrying a big stick and talking softly, but some of these kids need some discipline. So mom and dad, start doing your jobs, okay? Thank you.
We talk about all of those cultural and the impact of the cultural things. That is such an important one that the state has whittled away from parents, the idea of raising your kids and disciplining your kids. And while I know it's not going to give anybody great succor in this room, but I was disciplined quite severely. And hey, look how I turned out, right? Join us back on Monday for another episode, War Room Pandemic, with the team. Stephen K. Bannon will hopefully be back. We'll see you then.
Pain, swelling, stiffness. When your hands hurt, you can't function. Until now. Introducing the new Copperfit compression gloves with sure grip technology to give you more power, more control, and more agility than ever. Our most advanced copper